She told me her love would be my sanctuary, a safe place, shielded from a world that had always shown me its back. But a sanctuary can also be a prison, a beautiful, gilded cage built with sweet words and loving gestures. I just didn't see the bars until I was already locked inside and the key was long gone. She wasn't just the girl of my dreams. She was the architect of them and the director of my nightmares. The most terrifying part? For a long time, I loved her for it. I loved the cage. Before her, my life was quiet. Not the peaceful, meditative quiet you read about. It was a loud, echoing quiet. The kind that screams at you from the empty seat at the dinner table. The kind that rides shotgun in your car. The kind that greets you when the only sound you hear after walking in your front door is the click of the lock. I wasn't just alone. I was profoundly lonely. A ghost haunting the edges of other people's vibrant lives, just watching them laugh and hold hands and make plans for a future I couldn't even imagine for myself. My days were the same boring loop. Wake up, go to a job where I felt invisible, come home and lose myself in movies or video games, worlds where people actually had connections. I was a background character in my own story, and I'd pretty much accepted that. I had acquaintances, people I'd say hi to, but no one I could call at 3 in the morning, no one who really knew me, and then I met Rina. It was one of those cliches you roll your eyes at in the movies. I was in a small bookstore, the kind that smells like old paper and coffee. It was drizzling outside, a miserable day that perfectly matched my mood. I was tracing the spine of some fantasy novel when I heard someone next to me sigh. Not a sad sigh, but a sigh of pure frustration. I glanced over. She was on her tiptoes, her fingers just brushing the edge of a book on the highest shelf. She was beautiful, but in a soft, unassuming way. The kind of beauty that doesn't demand attention but gently earns it. Dark, messy hair and eyes the color of warm honey. I did something I never do. I spoke. Need a hand? She turned, startled, and a blush crept up her neck. Oh, yes, please, if you don't mind. I reached up, my height finally good for something besides seeing over crowds at concerts I went to alone, and grabbed the book, a collection of classic poetry. As I handed it to her, our fingers brushed. A tiny jolt like static shot through me. Thank you, she said, her voice as soft as her face. You're my hero. I'm pretty sure I turned beet red. I mumbled something like, no problem, and tried to disappear back into my shell, but she didn't let me. I'm Rina, she said with a small, shy smile. Kenji, I replied, my voice feeling rusty. And that was it, the beginning. We stood there in that aisle and talked for over an hour. It turned out we had the same taste in everything. Books, movies, music. It felt less like a conversation and more like finding a part of my soul I didn't know was missing. For the first time in years, that crushing weight of loneliness lifted, replaced by a strange fluttering hope. Our first date was a week later, then a second and a third. Rina was perfect, almost too perfect. She was attentive in a way I'd only dreamed of. She remembered the name of a boss I'd complained about once, in passing. She'd text me, good morning, every single day, always something different and sweet. Hope you have a day as wonderful as you are, or thinking of you. She didn't just hear me, she listened. I told her everything about my quiet life, about feeling invisible, about the loneliness that had been my only real companion. I'd never been that vulnerable with anyone. I expected her to run, to see me as pathetic. Instead, she just held my hand, her honey-colored eyes filled with this deep empathy that made me feel seen, truly seen, for the very first time. "You'll never be lonely again, Kenji," she promised, her voice intense and sincere. "I'm here now. I'll be your everything." And she was. My life, once a grayscale movie, exploded into Technicolor. Her laughter filled my silent apartment. The passenger seat wasn't empty anymore. We'd share stories about our day over dinner, amazing meals she said she learned to cook just for me. She'd leave little notes in my coat pocket. "I love you more than words can say. Can't wait to see you tonight." For a man who had been starving for a single drop of human connection, her affection was a drug. It was exhilarating. I was the center of her universe. Even my few friends noticed. "You're like a different person, Kenji," one said. "I've never seen you smile this much." He was right. I was happy, blissfully, stupidly happy. The honeymoon phase wasn't just a phase. It was my new reality. I fell for Rina so hard and fast I didn't even feel the impact. Her love was a tidal wave, and I didn't just let it sweep me away. I swam right out to meet it. Of course, there were signs, little things I brushed off as quirks, as proof of how much she cared. The first time was at a cafe. The waitress, a cheerful girl, complimented my jacket. I just thanked her and smiled. But when the waitress walked away, Rina's hand, which was on mine, tightened. I looked over at her. Her smile was gone, replaced by a flat, unreadable look. "What's wrong?" I asked. She blinked, and the smile was back, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Nothing. I just didn't like the way she was looking at you." I laughed, genuinely confused. "How was she looking at me?" "Like you were a piece of meat," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "She wants you, but you're mine." The raw possessiveness in her tone caught me off guard, but then she squeezed my hand again, gently this time, and looked at me with those wide, adoring eyes. "I'm sorry. I just love you so much. The thought of anyone else looking at you like that, it makes me feel crazy." And I melted. Of course, it wasn't jealousy, it was passion. It was a fierce, protective love. "You have nothing to worry about," I promised, pulling her close. "It's you. It has only ever been you." She buried her head in my chest, and I felt her relax. I felt like her protector. I had no idea I was the one who would soon need protecting. I can't pinpoint the exact moment the love story started to feel more like a thriller. The change was so gradual, so insidious. Those cute displays of jealousy started happening more often, each one a little more unsettling than the last. It was like a net being tightened so slowly I didn't realize I was caught. It started with my phone. At first, she'd just playfully glance over my shoulder when I was texting. "Who's that?" she'd ask with a smile. It was easy to tell her, a friend, my mom, a coworker. Then she started asking to see the actual conversations. "I just want to see the funny meme Mark sent," she'd say, all light and casual. It felt easier to just hand the phone over than to make it a thing. What did I have to hide, right? But then came the questions. "Who's Sarah from accounting?" "You text her a lot." I'd explained she was a colleague, that we were working on a project. Rina would nod like she understood, but a day later she'd say something like, "I hope Sarah knows you have a girlfriend who loves you very, very much." It wasn't a question. It was a warning. I just wasn't sure who it was for. Soon, her casual requests became demands. "Let me see your phone, Kenji." The playful tone was gone. If I hesitated for even a second, her eyes would cloud over with this deep, bottomless hurt. "Are you hiding something from me?" she'd ask, her voice trembling. She'd bring up her past, a vague but painful story of betrayal, and I'd feel like a monster. My need to protect her from more pain always won out over the alarm bells ringing in my head. So I'd give her the phone, and she'd spend an hour scrolling through everything. The silence in the room during those moments was suffocating. My social life started to die. If I made plans with friends, Rina would look heartbroken. "Oh," she'd say, her smile faltering. "I was really hoping we could spend the night together. I was going to make your favorite dinner." The guilt was a physical weight. More often than not, I'd just cancel. When I did go out, my phone would blow up. "Are you having fun? I miss you so much. Who are you with? It sounds loud there. I'm worried. Please come home soon. I can't sleep when you're not here." It was relentless. My friends noticed. Mark, my oldest friend, pulled me aside. "Dude, is everything okay? You've been a ghost. And your girlfriend, she's a little intense." I immediately got defensive. "She just loves me a lot. You don't get it. She needs me." Mark just looked at me with concern. "I get that, man. But she doesn't seem to like you having a life outside of her. That's not healthy." When I got home that night, Rena was waiting up, her face pale. "What did Mark say to you?" she asked, her voice dangerously calm. "What?" "Nothing, just catching up." "Don't lie to me, Kenji," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "I know he was talking about me. He's trying to turn you against me because he's jealous of what we have." I was stunned. "How could you possibly know that?" She held up her phone. She had somehow linked my location data to her device. She had been tracking me. She must have been nearby, listening. My blood ran cold. This wasn't love. This was surveillance. But before I could even process the violation, she collapsed into gut-wrenching sobs. "They're trying to take you away from me," she cried, clinging to me. "Everyone always leaves me. Don't you leave me, Kenji, please." And just like that, my anger evaporated, replaced by pity and that familiar, toxic sense of responsibility. I was the only thing holding her together. That's what I told myself. I held her, I comforted her, and I promised I wouldn't let anyone get between us. The next day, I sent Mark a short text saying I needed space. I didn't speak to him for months. I chose her. I chose the cage. My world had shrunk until it was just me and Rena. My apartment, once just lonely, now felt like her territory. My life wasn't mine anymore. It was ours, and she was the curator. Things escalated. One day, I came home from work and found her in a furious, silent rage. On the kitchen counter was a small, gift-wrapped box of chocolates. "What's this?" I asked. "It was on your desk," she said, her voice tight. "From Sarah from accounting. The note said, 'Thanks for all your help on the project. You're a lifesaver.'" She spat the words out like poison. Before I could explain, it was just a harmless thank you gift. She grabbed the box and hurled it against the wall. Chocolates exploded everywhere. "Does she love you, Kenji?" she screamed, her face twisted with a madness I'd never seen. "Does she make you feel special? Do you think about her? Tell me." I was genuinely terrified. This wasn't the sweet, gentle Rena I knew. "No, of course not. It's nothing, Rena, I swear." Her rage vanished in an instant, replaced by a chillingly calm smile. "I know," she said, stepping over the mess to straighten my tie. "I know you wouldn't, because you're mine, and I take care of what's mine." The next Monday at work, I learned Sarah had filed a complaint. Someone had slashed her tires over the weekend. They left a note on her windshield. It was a single, terrifying word: "Stay away." I felt sick to my stomach. I knew it was Rina. I couldn't prove it, but I knew. When I looked at her that night, smiling lovingly at me from across the dinner table, I couldn't bring myself to ask. I was too afraid. Afraid of what she'd say. Afraid of what she'd do. She was the source of all my happiness, and I was now realizing the source of a deep, chilling fear. I was trapped, loving her warmth and terrified of her fire, unable to pull away from either. The breaking point came on a Tuesday, our 1 year anniversary. By then, I had accepted my new reality. My life was a careful tightrope walk, all about managing Rina's emotions. I avoided mentioning any woman's name. I came straight home from work. I shared my location willingly just to avoid a fight. I told myself this was the price for a love this powerful. I wasn't just a prisoner in the cage anymore. I was its zookeeper. That morning, Rina was happier than I'd seen her in months. She made this elaborate breakfast and kissed me with a desperate, feverish energy. "I have a surprise for you tonight, Kenji," she whispered, her eyes shining. "The final piece. Everything will be perfect after tonight." Her words, the manic energy under her skin, put me on edge, but I forced a smile. "I can't wait." A sense of dread sat in my stomach like a stone all day at work. The final piece. What did that even mean? I tried calling my mom during my lunch break. I hadn't spoken to her in weeks because Rina always had a reason I shouldn't, but it went straight to voicemail. That was weird. She always picked up. When I got home, the apartment was dark except for one candle on the dining table. Rina was sitting there, wearing the same dress from our first date. She gave me a serene, almost triumphant smile that didn't fit the darkness. "Happy anniversary, my love," she said softly. On the table next to the candle was a small, ornate wooden box. It looked old. "What's this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The air felt thick, heavy. "My surprise," she said, her smile widening. "My promise fulfilled. You'll never be lonely again. I made sure of it." She pushed the box toward me. My hands were trembling as I reached for it. It was heavier than I expected. Taking a deep breath, I opened the lid. Inside, on a bed of black velvet, were phones and keys. I picked one up. It was my mom's. I recognized the chipped case. Next to it was my friend Mark's phone and Sarah's from accounting. Underneath them, a small labeled collection of house keys and car keys. Every important person from my life before Rina, all neatly collected in a box. The phone clattered onto the table. I stared at Rina, my mind failing to grasp the sheer, calculated madness of it. What did you do?" "I took care of the distractions," she said, her tone as calm as if she were talking about the weather. "They didn't love you like I do." They couldn't understand, so I visited them. I explained that you needed to focus on us now. Some were resistant, but they all agreed in the end. They won't be bothering you anymore. Agreed? My voice was shaking uncontrollably. "Rina, what did you do?" She stood up and walked slowly around the table. She wrapped her arms around my shoulders from behind, resting her chin on my head. "Don't worry about them," she cooed. "They're just gone. It's just you and me now. Forever. No more friends to make you doubt us. No family to pull you away for holidays. No one to look at you or talk to you or even think about you. Only me. Isn't it perfect?" I was frozen in pure terror. The bars of the cage weren't a metaphor anymore. She had physically dismantled my entire world, piece by piece. until she was the only thing left. The obsession I had mistaken for love had erased my reality. I finally broke. I shoved my chair back, scrambling to my feet, my heart pounding. "You're insane," I breathed, backing away. "You're a monster." Her face crumbled. For a split second, I saw the hurt, vulnerable girl I fell for, but it was gone in an instant, replaced by that same terrifying, possessive calm. "I did this for you, Kenji," she said, stepping toward me. "I did this because I love you. And you love me too. You're just scared. Let me help you understand." She held out her hand. "Come on, let's have dinner. I made your favorite." I looked at her hand, then at the door. I could run, but where would I go? Who would I call? She had taken everything. My entire support system was in that wooden box. She hadn't just trapped me in an apartment, she had trapped me in a life that contained only her. My shoulders slumped. The fight drained out of me, replaced by a cold, hollow emptiness. I looked into her honey-colored eyes, once a symbol of warmth, now a gateway to madness, and I understood. There was nothing left to escape to. Slowly, numbly, I walked back to the table and sat down. Rina smiled, a genuine, loving smile this time, and sat across from me. She started serving the food, chattering happily about the future we would have together, a future free from the noise of the outside world. And I just sat there, listening, a prisoner eating his last meal, except this meal would be served again tomorrow and the day after that. She had stolen my heart, yes, but she had also stolen my friends, my family, my past, and my future. She had stolen my world and replaced it with herself. She was my sanctuary, she was my prison. And as she smiled at me, her eyes full of that terrible, unwavering love, I realized they were one and the same. And I was home. That's my story. It's a story about how deep loneliness can make you vulnerable to the most dangerous kind of love. It makes me wonder, if you were in my shoes, right at the beginning, would you have seen the red flags? Or would you have been so desperate for the warmth that you didn't notice the fire until everything was already ashes? Let me know what you think in the comments. Where's the line between deep love and a dangerous obsession? Thanks for listening. This wasn't easy to share. But stories like this, even when they're not real, are a good reminder to be careful who you give your heart to. Sometimes the most beautiful flowers have the deadliest thorns. Cherish the healthy connections in your life. Be safe out there.